It's episode 99 and Johnny is finally back in the studio. This week we're tackling the biggest shifts in the industry. Apple has just officially launched their Creator Studio bundle with creativity apps like Final Cut Pro, Logic Pro and Pixelmator Pro. But does launching a subscription in 2026 mean that they're following down Adobe's dangerous path of expensive subscriptions?
Sorry, are they becoming Adobe?
We also dive deep into the rise and fall of Vimeo. How did the home of high-end filmmaking turn its back on the community that built it?
If one day anybody will add a course in business universities, it will be exactly how to build something and kill it a few years later.
Plus, we've got a GoPro laptop, Gunther's new stunning slow-motion butterfly documentary, and Fujifilm releasing a video Instax camera that prints its own film and... what can we call it? Well, it's a cinema camera, Johnny, so you'll be excited. Yeah, it's
Did I miss it?
It's a packed show. Let's focus check.
This is Focus Check, the weekly Cinetech podcast.
Welcome to episode 99 of CineD Focus Check podcast. Welcome back, Johnny, to the studio. Where have you been?
Well, I've been everywhere and nowhere at the same time. I mean, don't forget, we had some holidays, but I was also in England testing the new Fujifilm GFX ETERNA 55. More on that next week, actually.
Exactly. So you've been working a lot on this review. I mean, that's not only where you've been, of course. The last 4 episodes actually were more interview based. In case you guys missed them, I think we had some really amazing interviews with some really amazing filmmakers and also creators and hardware makers. First of all, with the Nexus G1 camera guys from Australia, that was released like a month ago, that interview, if you missed that. Then we had one with Tal Lazar, who released a new book. He's an educator and also an MZ course creator, and he just released his new book. Then we had the 2025 camera lab test discussion with Gunther. And last but not least, also a very nice, very long, very extensive interview with Oren Sofer, the DP of the creator, but mostly talking about his concerns with AI because he's been very critical of them. I'm very happy and proud that those interviews all seem to be doing quite well, and I have a lot of interest from the community. So in case you missed one of them, I can really just recommend you dive back in. Any one of them that stood out for you in terms of the people we interviewed?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, those are really nice interviews. Because I was not always available to help you with those interviews, I, of course, jumped in and watched them, like pretended to be just a viewer. And first of all, really good job interviewing the guys. And they are simply very nice interviews. I really recommend you guys to jump on those. Maybe my favorite is the one with the brothers from Australia who created the Nexus G1 camera. And it was so interesting to see the synergy between the guys. Maybe just a quick brief. Imagine 2 guys, filmmakers like us, but also with a lot of knowledge in industrial engineering, backed up with their father, who is also an engineer. And I guess there is an angel, according to what they say, an investor. Yeah. And the guys decided to make the camera of our dreams, basically.
Yeah. I was just amazed. I mean, I just couldn't believe that after the interview, I actually looked up how old they are. And I don't know whether Timothy or Thomas Boland, one of them is, I think, 23 or 24 years old. Can you imagine? What did you do when you were 24?
I can't talk about it publicly, but in general, I think they are simply very capable and very determined and very focused people. I think it's really such a test case in general to anybody from the community who wants to build something. Yeah, I mean, it's of course, there are a lot of factors that go here, but it's amazing that they literally buy black magic cameras, disassemble them. Which one exactly? It was the
Pocket 4K.
4K. Disassemble it and then take the parts that they need, like the sensor and probably part of the motherboards and whatever, and rebuilding everything in a facility that they built in Australia.
Yeah. It's just amazing.
And they still profit from it. This is also amazing.
I still don't understand. I mean, we talked about this on the podcast because they actually are a distributor, so they get the distributor price, but still that margin is what, 30% or something, maybe, I don't know, we don't know, but it's still very little money compared to such an inexpensive camera. And the Nexus G1 is also not that expensive. I think
it's a 3,000 ballpark,
something like that, and it's just incredible. I mean, I just can't wait for us to get our hands on this camera when it comes out, but yeah, really amazing.
Actually, we have to get the camera before it comes out.
Well, hopefully, but it's just amazing that they've been able to push this project that much, and you can see that they also have experience in marketing and 3D visualization, because everything about their presentation of the camera is just simply stunning.
Yeah, but what I take from this interview first, that they are really well connected. I mean, between them, they really. The synergy between the brothers is very interesting. I hope you guys will see what I mean if you watch the interview. And the second thing, they also expose to you that they are that they have like a dedicated mount for the camera.
Yeah,
this is the U mount, which is a very clever idea. I think previously they were working with EF mount, which is like. Kind of an open mount now, but I think now there's no more.
And it's legacy, like there's no new lenses coming out for it anymore.
That's right, and I'm not so sure if you have to pay any royalties to Canon for using it, but they decided probably to go the safe way. I mean, they haven't said that, but I can only imagine that at the end of the day, they needed a mount, and they probably couldn't license Sony, Nikon, or L mount, or from whatever reason. So they literally developed their own mount, and then they're avoiding any potential issues with proprietary mounts.
We don't know, but I mean,
that's my assumption, because then you have the camera mount, the U mount, and then on it they developed some adapters, so you can literally put any lens in the market on that camera, and that's very clever.
Yeah, it's the shortest flange distance, even shorter than Z mount. So you could even add a C mount to that. Yeah,
really amazing.
Yeah. Anyway, so we don't want to recap the whole interview, but I just wanted, thank you for watching it, and it's just an amazing conversation. And I think it's the first time they've ever talked openly like that on camera about their project, because, like they said, they like to stay behind the scenes. But I'm very thankful for them to come on the show. And thanks everybody for watching it also. Nice. It's been quite popular. All right, let's move on to this week's news, actually. So let's start with Apple Creator Studio. I'll just give a bit of an overview what we'll talk about. So Apple finally bundled Final Cut Pro, Logic Pro, Pixelmator Pro, which they just acquired just over a year ago, and also some more stuff into a annual and monthly subscription, and we'll talk about also the updates to these things. We'll talk about.
Are they becoming Adobe, or are we going to talk about it?
We'll talk about it. Okay. We'll talk about a article that I wrote on Vimeo with a bit of a thought-provoking title: "How Vimeo Betrayed the Filmmakers Who Built It." This is based on a nice video essay by Matt Johnson, like "Who is Matt? Who is Matt Johnson?" on YouTube. He did a nice essay on that, and I dived a little bit deeper even into the history and transition of Vimeo, and wrote this article, and we'll talk about, where it came from, what it was, what it's become now, and why that is. And we'll talk about a nice documentary that our friend Gunther shot in India with the PIXBOOM Spark camera. Now, we already, of course, did the review of the PIXBOOM Spark and showed some shots of this slow motion butterfly documentary, but now he has released his full 30-minute documentary, which is really a very nice piece. So we'll talk about it here on the show. And also Fujifilm released a new camera, but probably not what you expected. That was the Fujifilm Instax Mini Evo Cinema. And
It's a cinema camera.
It's a cinema camera. We can talk about that again. What is a cinema camera? We can, now we also know the price that was just released, actually, because now it's also getting released in the US and probably Europe. And we'll talk about what it is. And it's a fun little thing. I definitely want one, but it's not a professional camera. We'll talk about the poll for mobile filmmaking. What would it take for you to move from iPhone to an Android device? We know a lot of our audience, also from statistics on the website, are using Macs and iPhones. So we wondered, is there anything that would make you move as a filmmaker to a different phone if it had more filming capabilities than an iPhone. And we'll look at the poll results. We'll talk about Mid49 releasing a Direct Connect XLR module for the Fujifilm GFX ETERNA 55. And you can talk about that because you have experience with the camera and why that actually makes a lot of sense. It's, of course, a little accessory for a very specialized camera, but I think a lot of people who are interested in the camera seem to be quite excited about it. Then the GoPro laptop. Can you believe it? It's 2026 and we have a laptop from GoPro in cooperation with ASUS. We'll talk about whether this is a marketing exercise or if it actually offers proper workflow integration with GoPros and makes sense.
I hope it will I hope it will do better than the Karma drone.
Yeah, well, bit of old news that we haven't talked on the podcast yet. That's why I brought it in here. This is still from December, but ARRI in December on social media reaffirmed their commitment to their lighting and camera systems and kind of teased a roadmap for 2026. We'll just talk about that here briefly. And then also Hohem released new gimbals for mirrorless cameras, which are actually kind of the mirrorless versions of the gimbal that I reviewed for smartphones, and that's the MT3 gimbal series. I'll also review that one. Haven't reviewed it yet, but we'll talk about the news here in the podcast. And then 2 educational pieces that we released. Our friend Tito, I always say the name wrong. Sorry, Tito. Ferradans. It's different. It's very different. But anyway, the expert on anamorphic, like with the YouTube channel on anamorphic, fake anamorphic or real anamorphic, is Tito. And he also has 2 courses on MZ about that, which we're very thankful for, about anamorphic shooting and also anamorphic it till you make it. And he released a couple new videos on, talking about lens character, finding the right words when you're shooting anamorphic, and they're very nice.
I think you should try to say the last name in a Spanish accent.
It's not Spanish, it's Portuguese.
I know, but no, I know it's Portuguese, but try with a Spanish accent, see if it helps.
No, I won't.
No, it wouldn't.
It's just more embarrassing. And last but not least, an educational piece from Masha on extreme wide shots for impactful storytelling with some very famous film examples and what wide shots can actually do for your storytelling. But let's get started with the Apple news. So Apple just released Creator Studio, and we've had Final Cut Pro, which used to be Final Cut Pro X, for I think over 12, 13 years now. And it's always been a one-time purchase. They've never charged for an upgrade. I think it's like $300 or euros. And, you always got all the updates for free. Now, we'll not go into the discussion whether it's a proper competitor to Premiere and DaVinci and if it offers all the functionality that people need. I think it's like there's almost no discussion about that anymore. Even Apple uses DaVinci in a lot of their promotional material for, more professional workflows. So Final Cut Pro has a different spot in the lineup, and it's, it does a lot of things well, but it's probably not as comprehensive as DaVinci. Now, they also have Logic Pro, which is the professional sound post-production software. And just over a year ago, they acquired Pixelmator Pro, which is some people might not familiar with that. It's a professional photo editing app, which is kind of like a more intuitive version of Photoshop, I would say, but it's non-destructive as opposed to Photoshop, which is destructive. I mean, it has a non-destructive functions, but at the core, Photoshop is still a destructive application that actually does pixel, changes pixels. So when if you shrink something to a lower resolution and bring it back up again, the quality will be much worse. That's how Photoshop has always worked. That's why there's Lightroom, which works differently. But Pixelmator Pro is kind of like I would say like a mixture between Lightroom and Photoshop, and doesn't have all the functions, but it's very intuitive. They acquired that just over a year ago. I think it was a Lithuanian company. They took the developers on board with Apple, and since then it's an Apple product. All of those 3 apps are now bundled in something that Apple calls Creator Studio. And you can see on their website that they're really trying to push this as the way to get this. But you can still buy them individually. You can still get Final Cut Pro individually. You can get Logic Pro individually and Pixelmator Pro for the time being. Of course, Apple never talks, like most manufacturers, never talks about the future, which is different, right, from Adobe, right? If you want any of the Adobe programs, you have to get the subscription. There's no way to buy for a long time already any of the Adobe software anymore. These three you can still buy individually, or you can get the subscription. Now, the subscription will start at the end of January, January 28th to be exact, and the subscription will cost $12.99 per month, or $129 per year for those three apps. And on top of that, you get AI functions in the productivity apps from Apple, which are, of course, Numbers, Pages, Keynotes, and Freeform. I mean, there's also Motion and Compressor included, which I think are also still available as separate purchases, but they are kind of like adjacent apps to Final Cut Pro.
But some of the stuff here we get with the computer anyway, like Pages and...
yeah, they remain free. Pages,
okay.
Keynote, and Numbers remain free, but the AI functions of those, some of which you will have to pay for in the subscription, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. So the cool thing is with this, in general, I mean, for the first time, we have been invited by Apple to do an on-the-record interview with them, so we get some answers to questions that professionals might have. But before I dive into that, let me just talk about the what's actually new for Final Cut Pro, because it's also an update. It's not just the bundling; they also push an update. To the software, and there's some really, really cool stuff. I mean, first of all, one of the AI functions that they're adding to Final Cut Pro is called beat detection. Now, the cool thing is basically you can add a kind of grid in the background. You see it here. If you watch the video version of this, you suddenly get like a grid in the background of your timeline, and your edits can snap into that. So it analyzes the music track that you have. And instead of kind of finding those beats, which is not always easy based on the waveform, because depending on the kind of beat you have in your music, if there's a lot of other instruments in your music track, it's very hard to find actually the beats just based on the waveform. So this analyzes the beat, finds the rhythm, and just puts markers every time there's a beat. And it makes it super easy to actually move along, right? I saw a demo of this and it was amazing. I mean, it was really, somebody shot a multicam sequence of a musician on the street with 3 cameras, and then you just doing normal editing, and then you just enable this. It recognizes the beats, and then you just literally move your footage a little bit and it snaps into place. And it's just, I mean, it's such a time saver. It's really, really cool idea. So that is beat detection. Now, I asked on the interview whether, like, how this works. I mean, and they confirmed it uses Logic's engine to snap edits to music automatically. And that's kind of the exclusive scoop that we got in the interview. Is Apple confirmed to us in writing that you cannot export this beat grid to Pro Tools or Logic via XML, which is kind of a bummer, of course, because if you want to do more professional post-production of this, it would be great to do this. Maybe this is something hopefully they can think about adding in the future, because it would be nice to get this out again if you want to round trip it with professional audio editing apps. The other thing that they added is transcript search. And let me just try and find the screenshot here. That's this one. So we know that already since, I don't know, one of the last versions of Final Cut, you can automatically generate a transcript, which is machine learning based also. I think it runs actually on device, so it doesn't have to connect to the internet, which is nice. And this transcript, now you can literally do search, which is great. So you know if somebody's talking about something, you can look for the words. But the really cool thing for me here is that you do not have to necessarily find the exact words. You can also say, Because you shoot a 1 hour interview of something, and then you're like, okay, this person talked about this kind of topic. You might not remember the exact words, but you know the topic. So now you can also decide to look in the transcript to look for words in relation to something, which is amazing. So it kind of, with machine learning AI, it understands what it's talking about, and then you can look for that. And that's, if that works well, that can be such a huge time saver for documentaries, in my opinion. Because it's just smarter than just a plain transcript, of course. Because otherwise, I mean, what people would have done so far, and I've done this before. I mean, you have a transcript of an interview, you export it, then you feed it into ChatGPT or whatever, and then with the time code markers even, and then you try to find where is the section, and then you like it tells you it's in this section, then you have to go back into your NLE and find. So this is kind of built in now, and could be a huge time saver. Yeah.
I don't know what about you guys. There are so many new tools in general that should help us to edit with support of AI. The little bit that I tried, I have mixed, mixed results with that. I don't know about you. When you're editing, did you use any of those new tools already? Besides, transcription is very easy and it works very well. Actually, I'm always surprised. I'm working with Premiere that it can also understand quite well English, but also with very heavy accent. It doesn't matter if it's mine or somebody from the Far East or whatever. It does a good job. But besides that, I still have to learn how to implement all of those new features in my workflow. For example, finding a specific part of the interview that I kind of remember or wanted to. But it's getting. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think one of the problems that I had in the past was simply that it sometimes, even though if the transcription is good, it might always get some words wrong, which are like more like, not library, not dictionary words, but like, even if you say like something like CineD, like you might write it wrong and then you can't find it anymore. Yeah. But I think this is the right step in the direction. I mean, I wish there was a way within the NLE to interact with the script, right? Like you do with a chatbot, and actually tell it, well, actually you got this wrong, correct. You can manually change it word by word, but that's cumbersome. I want it to be like, okay, well, you understand this throughout the interview, change all instances of that word to this, right? Just, that would be nice. But I think this is a right step, like to really have it understand what you're doing. And they even went a step further. I mean, first of all, for this also, I asked whether you can get this out, but you cannot export the text you can export the text.
You can export the transcript, of course, but what it doesn't do is actually, unfortunately, it doesn't do this speaker diarization, so it doesn't recognize different speakers.
Okay,
that would be extremely useful. So if you have, of course, I think it's less of a problem sometimes in a professional interview because you have separate microphones anyway, so you can do that. But sometimes, like if we sit next to each other, your microphone will also pick up me. So if we do a transcript of your microphone only, it might still transcribe me too, and then it's a bit of a problem. But so it so far, unfortunately, doesn't identify who is actually speaking. And that would be nice. But yeah, you can export, of course, the full transcript. But then, like this identification thing with what's relating, then you can work with this in an LLM, of course. But then you kind of get out of the Final Cut workflow. I
want to go back to the main topic. So just that I understand. So Apple is now moving to the direction of Adobe.
But wait, there's more.
There's more updates.
Yeah, of course.
Ooh, okay.
The other great thing that they added is actually even better in my opinion, and it's called visual search. So now, the main problem is always you have a lot of footage and you're supposed to tag it or whatever. Nobody ever does it because you never have the time to, in Final Cut is actually one of the best ones when it comes to tagging, because you can even select sections of a clip and give tags, right? You can even you do like, in this part of the thing I can just mark in and out in here, and this is where you see the stairs, and then there's a pan and you pan to something else. You could do that, but it's very cumbersome. And of course, we all know, like hardly any editor does that unless you work on a huge project and maybe have an assistant editor to prepare that stuff. But this feature is called visual search. So now you can look for things in your footage. It analyzes all the footage, and you can look for things like stairs. Like in this example, they put,
it's amazing. You remember
stairs.
Strada? That's originally the Michael Cioni, when he developed with his brother and his team members, Strada. That's how they started, with exactly tools like this.
Yeah.
And for us, it was always, if the big companies will pick up on that, then they are killing the business model of Strada. And since then, Strada moved away. They're doing something completely different, I would say. But obviously, that's exactly what happened. That the big companies are picking up.
It's logical. It's all machine learning. It's doable now. And Apple is trying to do most of this on device, which is nice. So you don't actually have to connect to the internet for this stuff, which is amazing. I mean, we know that Apple has been struggling with the whole AI topic in general, but they seem to be working in a way where they focus more on the privacy and as much as possible on device, right? Which is great because it kind of makes you independent from being connected to the internet with these things. So these three features are huge, actually: beat detection, transcript search, and visual search. And I think it's pretty amazing that this is possible now. Now, there is actually, that's something you might want for your family editing. Final Cut Pro for iPad also gets an update, and they have something called, Montage Maker. So it basically makes an auto cut of footage that you define to some music, right? I asked, this is nice, of course. It has a bit of a consumer vibe, because why, as a professional, you wouldn't do an automatic edit. It reminds me a little bit to what they used to have in the old days in iMovie. They called it Magic iMovie. It's literally like you throw in a lot of footage and then it just makes a random edit. Hopefully this works better because, of course, they have some machine learning now, 20 years later.
So this is the feature that will keep our marriages secure, safe and secure. Because
you throw in all the footage from your kids.
And like, hey, look, I have a video.
Exactly. But I asked in the interview whether it's possible to, use this as a, as a basis for a professional edit. And they said, well, yes, because how it technically works seems to be like a compound clip. It's called Final Cut. Those you can select a number of clips and make them into a compound clip. So they are treated as one clip. So you can take this and then transfer it into a normal project, and then just take it apart there. So you can probably edit from there. Let's see how it really works. I mean, I'll hopefully get my hands on this soon and just try how it works, because it's always nice to have a starting point on the iPad and then go to the Mac, because that's how Final Cut Pro for the iPad works. You still can't round trip, unfortunately. Like you can't go back, because of course the iPad version is lacking a lot of the features from the desktop version. But you can go into this one direction, and this already helps if you are on set and you want to just do like a best of the shots that you took or whatever, just to show the client. Nice to have, and then maybe even move on from that. It's a nice feature, but of course it's predominantly targeted at families, I would say, or consumers in general. Now, so all that is coming. Now, the first question, of course, that I had is because I think in reporting online, I see a lot of people thinking that those AI versions will not come to the perpetual license version of Final Cut, which is still available. But they confirmed to me on camera that, not on camera, but on the record, that it's coming. Like, you can get all of those features are also included in the perpetual license. You will not have to compromise on that. For some reason, a lot of people online think that this is not the case, that you will not get access to that. But it's all included. So there's not going to be any discernible difference between the normal license, the permanent license of Final Cut Pro, or Logic Pro for that matter, and or the subscription license. So
Okay.
so I mean, where this leads, and that's what you already asked, are they becoming Adobe? Well, we know that Apple has been working a lot in the last few years to shift a little bit. I mean, they're still predominantly a hardware business. That's how they earn most of their money. But they are, if you look at their quarterly and annual results, they're, making more and more revenue from services. And they're just trying to grow the services business. I mean, that's, nothing to do with our filmmaking niche, but we've seen Apple subscriptions like even this, like, of course, Apple TV, but then also the Apple Fitness. We have the iCloud, of course, and then this bundle subscription, the Apple One, which includes all of them, which is, doing quite well. I think a lot of Apple Music, of course. And then now they are also moving this into their productivity and creativity apps under this. So what's nice for me is that the productivity apps for now remain free. You still have Pages, Keynote, and Numbers and Freeform for free, but they will get AI functions. And those AI functions, I think, will actually be only for the subscribers, because but they are not essential. I mean, for example, for Keynote, you get image generation built in, in general. I mean, this is based on an OpenAI image model. So you can now generate, first of all, you get access to curated photos. So there's a huge, they didn't disclose how many those are, but you get access to a lot of graphics and curated archive of photos and graphics for different topics if you use Keynote and Numbers and Pages. And you can also, within the application, generate images to your liking using OpenAI models. So that requires the subscription. And if you don't have the subscription, you will still see that library of photos, but they will be watermarked. So you will have watermarked photos. So that's how they try to get you, but you can still use the app fully. The apps fully now.
I don't have much to contribute here since I'm not really using any of those apps for my daily workflow.
Not even Pages or Keynote?
Pages, yeah, but it's for what we need and Keynote. That's fine enough. Yeah, I wonder if that's a sign of time that poor Apple needs more money.
Well, there's been a lot of discussion that that's exactly the thing, right? There was nothing ever like it was always strange for us to see that companies like Blackmagic Design or Adobe poured a lot more resources in developing their editing apps, or in general filmmaking, post-production apps, not just editing apps, than Apple. Because Apple, of course, being one of the biggest companies in the world, they would have the resources to do so. Yep. However, I think it's always for them been like more like a, excuse to sell more hardware so far. If you look at Final Cut Pro, it's extremely performant. It's always lacked features. It's gotten a lot better over the last 12, 13 years, but it's always lacked features compared to DaVinci Resolve or Premiere. But it's extremely performant. It's very fast. You can work with 4 or 6K footage, even on an older Mac, as long as it's even before the M series, right? Even the Intel ones, it worked really well. And they kind of were able to show off how well it works with this app. But of course, it never made money for them. It can't, because it's like one time they charge. So my hope is that if they see that this is working, and the subscription price, I think, is very reasonable if you compare this to what Adobe charges for their apps. I think you pay almost as much per month for an Adobe suite than you pay for a full year of this.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, if you have the full Adobe suite, I think it's a lot more. Yeah,
Okay.
it's also a lot more software, of course, and a lot more functionality. But still, $130 per year is not, it's not breaking the bank for what you get. My hope is that they will actually see that there is a lot of people subscribing to this, because that will force them to add more resources to this project, like to develop Final Cut Pro faster. Because that's been you always notice that when Apple brought out Final Cut Pro for iPad, that's the time before that is just like from observation, it seemed like the Mac version actually didn't get a lot of new features for a very long time, because probably the people who worked on the iPad version were the ones who did the Mac version and now had to do the iPad version, and it's like it seems to be a very small team working on these things. I hope they can just add more resources to this in order to just it doesn't need to be DaVinci. We have DaVinci, it's free, it's kind of like you don't need another DaVinci, but they still have a lot of things to bring to the table for, like making it easier to get fast edits done quickly. But yeah, it's nice to see that they're integrating those AI tools and it gets the attention that it deserves. And we see that there is a commitment from Apple to these creativity apps, also because they acquired Pixelmator Pro just not even 1.5 years ago, and now are really for the first time pushing it as an Apple native app. It's also coming to the iPad. This is something I still have to play with more, but from what I've seen, it's extremely capable. I think it can completely replace Photoshop for a lot of users.
Oh wow! Okay.
And even you can even do art. Like you can do layouts with it too. And the way it works is very intuitive. It's much more intuitive than Photoshop, which of course has a 35-year history. Or however old it is, very old, and it can do everything, but you need to learn it, right? So Pixelmator Pro, I think, also is a good sign of the times that Apple has a commitment to actually do more in this field. So let's see. My hope is just that they will bring out more regular updates to all of those apps. First and foremost, Final Cut Pro, and it's kind of like satellite apps, which is motion and compressor, on a more regular basis. I still love using Final Cut for any fast turnaround edits, because I just get in and out so much faster than I do with other editing apps. So let's see. I'm not sure, by the way, about the redesign of the logos. I don't know. I miss the old logos. It seems so, I don't know. Yeah, of course, they wanted consistency here, but it almost makes it a little bit, it seems like generated to me. I like the old Final Cut. I like the old freeform logos better, but that's up for discussion here. But yeah, so that's Apple Creator Studio, which will be released by the end of January. Good. Let's move on to Vimeo. So there was a nice little video. Well, it's actually like a 20-minute video from Matt Johnson. Who is Matt Johnson? He's quite prominent on YouTube and also on Instagram. And he posted a video which is called The Rise and Fall of Vimeo, which is basically circling this history of that platform that we probably all started with in the old days.
We all started, we loved the quality. It was a go-to place for many of us when we started with the DSLRs and later mirrorless cameras. But somehow, if one day anybody will add a course in business universities, it will be exactly how to build something and kill it a few years later. We know they moved completely to enterprises, but
yeah.
I haven't visited Vimeo, I don't know for how long, and it's become really limited. And in the EU, you can't even enter some of the stuff.
You can't access, you don't have a feed anymore. We cannot see a feed of videos. It's not available in the UK and the EU.
Yeah, so. It's like really how to do everything wrong, unless there is a reason. Maybe the business reason.
Yeah.
But
well, I think historically we saw that. Every filmmaker gravitated towards Vimeo in, I would say, from 2010 to 15, because it had a much higher quality HD than YouTube. YouTube at the time, if you look back, actually originally had a 320 by 240 resolution, and then YouTube added a premium, like a higher quality upload, and it was 480. So it was completely like night and day, very different from the YouTube it is now.
And no videos of cats or anything. It was almost like really for us professionals.
Vimeo,
who wanted to demonstrate. It was like a little, I'm saying marketplace or shopping window, but on a positive way. It was really something that we
and no ads. There were no ads or hardly any ads, and at some point, you had to pay for it. I think you already had to pay for it quite. There was always a free tier, but it was always very limited. So a lot of people got the Plus accounts, and then
we happily paid for it.
and you were kind of trapped. We found out later because that's
and then
the thing.
Came the whole punishment. Like if you don't pay, we're gonna delete, we're gonna move, you don't know access, and so on. It was like really being.
And
like
one of the things that people really loved was that they had their staff picks, and they did a really remarkable job at selecting very, very good videos. And the interesting thing is, I think I'm circling it here, even in the article, that there were some really, really famous filmmakers who later went on to become very, very successful. For example, the team behind Everything Everywhere All at Once, the movie that won, Best Picture Oscar, they started with Vimeo. Like a lot of people actually started with Vimeo and became, kind of grinding their teeth on this platform. And and then at some point things started to change. Well, first of all, YouTube, of course, somehow, I think what we saw this biggest change when we moved into the 4K era, and Vimeo started to stutter, like the buffering issues, and it became never played smoothly. And Google, then already, owning YouTube for a very long time, was able to deliver much higher quality 4K without any stuttering. So a lot of people moved on from there. And and then I think it was just, I think the original founders already left like 2007,
something happened. Management had changed.
Yeah, that changed later. And then people started to find out that if you are canceling your subscription, Vimeo would start deleting your videos, like literally,
or hiding them or whatever.
No, they're gone. I like like if you cancel your subscription, they're deleting your videos.
I'm not so sure, because I can tell you that from my private videos, I literally stopped at some point to pay, but they were not deleted, because when I came back later to pay because of being afraid of deletion, the videos were there. They were there. So
but you couldn't access them in the meantime, I guess.
No, something like this. There was some, in all honesty, I'm not giving it a second thought, because I think they really, really, really treated the community who built them and support them in the most horrible way. It's like, how can a company even afford to create such an antagonism from us?
Yeah.
Who paid subscription, and from whatever reason, as a business, you want to keep the people on your side. You don't want to make us upset in any way, because it makes zero business logic here. Yeah.
Well, there was even more, like that upset a lot of people. They started to implement, of course, at some point. Also, when YouTube started this, we had the copyright strikes coming. Suddenly, all the music libraries were able to quickly technically identify when you used a track that you didn't have permission to use or whatever. And YouTube also applied this to their existing library, but they did it in a softer way. They kind of like, if you were a YouTube creator and you use a copyrighted song, you could very rarely a video would have to be taken offline. Mostly it's just demonetized, and then actually there's still ads on it, but the ad revenue goes to the rights holder of the music track. And with Vimeo, it was different. They would literally delete your video or hide it if you are, like if you have a copyrighted music track. Now, the problem was a lot of professional filmmakers used it even for music videos that they shot for the artists. And there's so many reports of people who uploaded the work that they did for that artist, and then they couldn't even show it anymore because it, of course, through the music algorithm was recognized, and there was no way to properly appeal because they probably didn't have the staff to even deal with this stuff. Yeah. So we saw this in a lot of comments actually on the article, and also on Matt's video, that this is, like so many people were burnt by this, and then they just moved on and went to YouTube. And then, of course, the Staff Picks program has been discontinued in the EU and UK in late 2024, which is sad because it always highlighted great content. I think it's still running. I checked on their website in the US, but of course it's a bit meaningless if you have to look where somebody is from, and then you can only upload if you're in the US. So for some reason, and then also like we said before, there's no there's no video feed anymore. I can't, like, from here, if I go to the Vimeo website, actually we can demonstrate it here. We can't even, I think I have to probably log out, But if I log out our account and, like there's no feed. There's, like your videos, your way, blah, blah, blah. There's all the enterprise functions that they have, which, a lot of them are great and so on. But there's staff pick still, but that, it's not for EU or UK. There's no way to actually see videos, like it's just not there. I don't even know what it looks like from the US, but somewhere there must be a feed of videos where you are just exposed to new content. You can't see it anymore. All of it is corporate. So, yeah, but in the background, what happened is they went to the stock exchange in 2021. They, unfortunately for them, picked the worst time you could pick for a tech company to go to the stock exchange because it completely tanked. I think it lost over 90% of its value. And I think they were valued at 10 billion at some point. Then eventually they were taken off the stock exchange just half a year ago and bought by Bending Spoons, which is a Italy-based company that also, has had a reputation for turning around tech businesses that have been almost failing. For example, WeTransfer was in big trouble when they took over. And also some others, Notion. And for example, with WeTransfer, they laid off 75% of the staff after they took over. So Vimeo has already laid off a lot of their staff, but not as much yet. So, a lot of people are fearing that more will follow and what that will mean for the brand. Now, they have completely pivoted to enterprise. Like we know this because we are also customers of Vimeo for our MZ education business. We're actually running the courses on Vimeo Enterprise contract. And of course, like the functions that they have are great. There's a lot of analytics. There's a lot of functionality. But that has nothing to do with the community. With the community they gave up on. It's all about a lot of people that I saw also in our comments that are still sticking with Vimeo are actually sticking with it to present their work to clients without ads. And that's one of the big things that they seem to be one of the few ones that have this. You can still swap a video. Like you can, if
keep the URL,
you keep the URL and you can change the actual video if you need to update the edit, which is of course great.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't know why YouTube never
YouTube.
actually presented such a feature because it's essential for creators.
I think it's dangerous for a platform like YouTube because imagine you have a very popular video, like millions of views on YouTube, and let's just say somebody would hack your account, or even if you're like a bad actor and you would swap that video to something completely different, and then the numbers would be like millions of views on that video, and people would think that this video actually got millions of views, but it's never the case. Yeah. So I think it's a legal thing at some point, and also like it can become quite dangerous. I mean, of course they could allow it for, but they would probably have to limit it because but YouTube is all about getting exposure and a lot of views. Vimeo not is more like about presenting and enterprise, and also, like even now they also added a review function, so they're kind of moving into what Frame.io is and so on. But, yeah.
I feel like I wasted 10 minutes of my life talking about Vimeo. Really, that's how I feel. This is so much a thing of the past for me, and it's like, come on, move on.
But it's still, a lot of people are still using it. We're still using it. So
well, I'm okay. Yeah, well, we need it for our business. That's
we're not. I think a lot of the enterprise stuff that they have is actually quite amazing. Like they have a lot of really great functionality. I just hear that the support isn't that great, and also the worst thing is simply that they gave up on the community. And that's why, like you said, that it created a lot of antagonism from the community, because we still feel like it was this perfect haven for filmmakers where actual people from the company were watching and also rating and kind of, like these films. And the Vimeo staff picks became, it's almost like an Oscar shortlist, I mean, it was something really, I think I had 1 or 2 short films there, and it just propelled them into hundreds of thousands of views in the early days of the DSLR craziness, right? So this was really, really great, actually. And that you have people from the company. I mean, I don't know, maybe the YouTube should do staff picks or whatever. But they just simply gave up on filmmakers, which is sad.
Let's move on.
You want to move on.
Yeah.
All right. Good. Let's talk about a film that would deserve to be a staff pick, which is Gunther's documentary Goa, an Indian wildlife documentary, which he shot on the PIXBOOM Spark and LUMIX cameras.
So Gunther is our dear friend and colleague. He's doing all of our lab tests in a very, very nice way. But Gunther, in his passion and heart, is also a filmmaker, and his go-to destination is India. He always says, whatever you can find in Africa, you can find even nicer in India. And he's actually trying to convince us to go with him and film him filming nature videos. Maybe we'll pick up the ball and do some MZ educational content about this. But in regards to what he did here, Gunther went to Goa and he wanted to film butterflies. One day he appeared, knocked on the door and said, guys, do you have a camera for me that can shoot in high frame rate, like over 120 frames per second in 4K? And it was literally right after we came back from IBC in September 2025. And he said, yes, let us talk to the guys at PIXBOOM and see if we can actually use the camera that they just gave us for review and give you that camera to go to India. The thing is that was an early prototype camera. And literally, we could give Gunther the camera one day before he left to India. So we all understand the risk and the consequences. If you come to a place, you literally don't really know how to operate the camera and if it will even perform in terms of overheating and frame rates and so on. But we actually sat down with some users at IBC and recorded the whole how to audio in order to lend it, to give it to Gunther, that while he was flying, he could listen and hear how to work with the camera. And he took the camera and he was really happy using it. And the footage that he came back with is literally breathtaking. I mean, shooting butterflies in slow motion. And this is something that's really happening now a lot in India. People are looking for ways to... I don't want to say to survive, it's too extreme, but how to build a business.
Attract tourism.
And we can see a lot of little farms, people literally doing like an ecosystem when birds or butterflies will come to this little farm, and then they are allowing photographers or video makers to come into those farms and film or take photos. And that's working incredibly well. And that's what some of the people that Gunther met in Goa literally did. And for the normal shooting, he used LUMIX cameras, actually the S1, the original one. At that time, the S1 II, maybe it was out, but he didn't take it with him. He had the original one with some lenses from Canon. And for the PIXBOOM, the same. This is a global shutter camera, so it's really, and it shoots in open gate, which means doesn't matter where the butterfly is, it's really helping, and later on you can crop to the part of the footage and image that you want. And just guys, if you want to, it's almost like watching this film is almost like meditation. That's how I felt. Yeah, watching butterflies, people talking about nature. But the one
and
thing
watching them in slow motion.
Exactly. But the one thing that I want to take from that film is to emphasize how far we came. Like, you can take that camera, which is absolutely affordable, with, let's say, another mirrorless camera, doesn't matter now which brand you choose, and you can film a whole documentary, full-length documentary that has a great quality with very accessible tools. This is something that was unheard of up until a few years ago, and now it's all there. So again, it all depends on the shoot, on the story you want to tell, and your ability and capability to shoot nice footage, and then later on edit. But I think here Gunther is really demonstrating again that it's absolutely doable in a very low budget, say. Yeah? And this is something that could be a few years ago you say, National Geographic. Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you want to see the full documentary, of course, we've embedded it on the website, a link in the show notes. And yeah, It's really nice. And we do have wildlife courses on MZ from Doug Jensen and also Paul Atkins and Stephen Lighthill. So if you are interested in learning about wildlife filmmaking and how to do this, we have extensive education on this.
But nothing about butterflies, no?
Nothing about butterflies, but they're... Yeah. Let's move on to the camera news of the week. Well, it's a cinema camera, Johnny. So you'll be excited. Yeah.
Did I miss it?
It's a real cinema camera. It's the Fujifilm Instax Mini Evo Cinema, which launched with a built-in printer. Everything you always wanted for a cinema camera. No, but seriously now, we know that the Instax camera is probably what pays the bills over at Fujifilm because they've been really, really successful over the years. I think everybody has one at home. Either the real film ones, like I have one of those, or the ones that are actually digital cameras that have a digital printer built in. Now, this one I think is a really funny concept. So first of all, you see the form factor is almost like an old 8mm camera. And if you look at the camera more closely, well, actually, there's a nice little video here. This was originally just released in Japan, and it's a gimmick, right? Let's just get this right out of the gate here. It's really a gimmick camera. It's nothing professional at all. But it has a selection wheel where you can actually select different film styles like 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and so on. And then it gives you some kind of look from that era, from that decade. And you can record only 15-second clips. And they will play back on this little screen. And then you can connect your phone with the app and transfer it, of course. But the cool thing is you can select there's an actual film printer inside. So you can select one frame from that video and print it out. And you can select to print out that photo with a QR code. And if there's the QR code on the photo, somebody who sees that photo, well, here you see the example of the different looks, but somebody who gets that actual physical photo and has a QR code can use their phone to scan the QR code and then watch the video on a website, right? So, for example, you have we have all those Instax photos on our fridge, like family photos of the kids and family. And then just having an additional little QR code, of course, is a fun idea because then everybody who's there with their phones can just scan it and watch the little 15-second clip. I mean, it is a real gimmick. I think it's a fun thing. You want to shoot a documentary with this?
I don't know if I want to shoot a documentary. Although, I'm happy to pick up the glove and try to do so.
That would be really fun.
This is very much related to, let's say differently. When you're in Japan, you understand the power of Instax. It's unbelievable. I tried, I think it was last year, to get a camera for my daughter. It was almost impossible, like really sold out.
The Evo?
The Evo, yeah. Or Evo Mini or whatever the name was. I mean, I'm not so familiar with the whole line, but they're literally extremely popular. On top, we're going to visit CP Plus this year again. It's happening next month, February. Last year... Can
you bring us one of those?
I'll bring one of those.
I want to play with it.
I'll bring one of those. But I just want to say that the Instax part in the Fujifilm booth is very big, yeah, and as such, it's always crowded with people. I mean, it's beautifully made and constructed, but the booth is very busy thanks to this. Now, moving to that one, I have to say that it's a genius idea because like how to extend the usability of a very well brand and product already. So obviously the move from photo only to photo video is genius. I personally would have loved to see maybe a 30 seconds video. So that means you could immediately upload it to Instagram or so on.
Or you can do that with 15.
Yeah, but 15 maybe is a bit too short. I don't know.
I think the idea is just to have it's almost like the, what is it called on the live photos on iPhones, where it's actually a little video, right?
Those live, which is the standard. I never knew what to do with those.
It's the default. Well, a lot of people, I also have it mostly switched off because it annoys me. But a lot of people use this, and then you can just select the best moment of this. So it's almost like that. And it's of course for me also the genius is the connection of it. I think the whole idea is it's a photo camera, but it gives you a glimpse back in time almost, right?
Yeah.
Because you have the physical photo, and then you can go back and actually see the actual video around it in a way, right? So if it's longer than 15 seconds, it becomes a real video, and I think that's what they don't want.
Yeah. Well, just to refer to the Apple thing that you can take a sequence of photos, I think it's like 10 photos. For me, this is purely a business decision.
More, yeah.
It's like let's crowd your iCloud account with photos, and then you have to buy even more storage. That's for me. That's why Apple invented this. But I'm joking. From the videos that we see that the company published, it looks a low resolution video, but I think many would love to play with this and imagine this. Even in birthday parties or just there's so many things. And again, it's a beginning of something.
Yeah.
Because from that point onward, you can really you can make the impossible possible.
But look, they have a viewfinder.
They have a viewfinder.
They have a viewfinder. You always want the viewfinders. It's almost like it looks like a Z finder from Zacuto in the old days.
That's right. And since it's a cinema camera,
I guess it's optional.
It says,
I don't speak Japanese, but I guess it's optional.
There's also an English version, by the way. We can update the video, the link. But this is nice that in Japanese. But I'm just saying, since it's an Instax Mini Evo Cinema, first it shows again that cinema became very widespread term.
It's a marketing term. Yeah.
Marketing term. I'm not gonna grill Fujifilm here.
But you know that now we have to put this in the cinema category for the 2026 CineD best camera award.
Maybe it will win. I think it has a good chance. But again, it gets very high points for the idea, for the execution. We just have to simply see how it works. Again, don't expect here 8K videos or anything. But
or any K. I don't think it's 1K.
I don't know. We have to dive a bit more into this. But well done. Looking forward to put our hands on this one.
It's going to be very fun too. Yeah, maybe we can get 3 and we shoot a full podcast with it. Then it's just 15 seconds long and people don't have to listen for 1.5 hours. So
imagine, can you even upload to Spotify like a 15 seconds audio?
Spotify?
Because we have the audio version, we have to think about audio also.
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah. All right, let's move on to the poll of the week. So you started the poll, which is mobile filmmaking. What would it take for you to move from iPhone to Android?
Yeah, I mean, what really ignited me here was the new phone from Xiaomi. They have they even tightening the cooperation. You know, every half a year you get a news press release that Xiaomi and Leica are cooperating, and every 6 months it's like we are cooperating even closer, and we are working together. So obviously they're building something. And this time it's the Xiaomi 17 Ultra, which also has a version with a Leica badge. And the versions are a little bit different. Mm-hmm. There's a very nice, I don't want to say gimmick, but I hope it's a useful feature. But the front, you can really use it for focus and for zooming. There's like a front dial on the lenses on this phone. But that's brought me to think about, will I buy this phone for, let's say, filmmaking? Yeah. And we are all stuck with our iPhones. We love the iPhones because it also gives a lot when as a filmmaker. Personally, I never used it on anything professionals, but the log picture profile that they have, the RAW recording, internal RAW recording, and so on, really makes the iPhone a valid candidate for future.
Well, let's just say we're working on things.
We work on things, but it's not that I went out and shot anything professionally. But I'm just saying, this Xiaomi looked so beautiful. Really, it just looks like a very nice device. It also looks quite capable. And I was thinking for myself, what will make me to purchase that phone and work with it, yeah. And then I said, okay, let's see what the people are thinking. Let's do a poll about it. So the whole poll, the very simple poll in a way, asking iPhone users what will make you move to an Android device. Is it the large sensor, internal RAW recording, better quality lenses, a greater internal memory capacity, or I'm not replacing my iPhone. Period. So Almost 500 people were kind enough to answer. And as we can see, I don't want to say the majority, but many are, we will never, or for now, will not replace their iPhone. They're quite happy with that.
Well, we also have to say that, of course, there's a lot of other factors building into this, which is not just the camera. I mean, you're kind of like in an ecosystem, and it's very hard, and you might not want to leave that ecosystem. So we can't kind of say that these 33%, 34% who said that they are not replacing their iPhone period are doing this just because they're happy with the camera. They might not be, they might want to have something that an Android phone has, but they might just keep their iPhones for different reasons.
Well, obviously, if there was a larger sensor in Android-based devices, they might consider. That's what we see from the poll. Yeah, and that's quite interesting. I don't know. I mean, my assumption was always if Chinese companies or Apple for that discussion, for that matter of discussion, if they will recognize a business case, a pure way to make money, they will highlight filmmaking also and not only taking photos with their devices. And I'm very eager to see if companies like Xiaomi, Vivo, and other will actually move in this direction.
Well, if you look at the quality of, first of all, I think in terms of consumer video, we know that this is the main focus of all of them is photo and video. It's just better quality. If you look at the latest Vivo phone specifically, the photo quality I think is much better than on the iPhone.
You saw some
it's much better. It looks more organic. It looks more like a mirrorless photo. Like the whole, the whole kind of what is called portrait mode on iPhone, it simply looks more convincing on the Vivo phone, period.
Do you know if it's working also on video mode, by the way?
No, it does not. That's the thing, right? They have there are some modes like that, but that works better on iPhone still, the cinematic mode. Yeah, that's better. And also, I think you told me actually that there is a log on Samsung phones, but as opposed to that, Apple, except for Samsung, Apple is still quite alone with providing professional log in their phone. None of the others have that, and none of the others have ProRes or even ProRes RAW recording. So you don't get that with any of the other phones.
Yeah, unless using a third party.
Yeah, you can get like whatever, and some of them even produce like CD and G, which is crazy amounts of data and so on. So I think that is actually you see only from a manufacturer level. It's if we talk about the pro features of video, it seems to be only Apple taking this seriously right now, and Samsung is moving into that direction. But maybe they don't think the market is big enough. I don't know.
Again, if they will recognize a business opportunity, they will do this. But what is also nice to see how a company like Leica is actually able to dance on two separate weddings. One is really have a line of mirrorless cameras, which is rather expensive for what they can do and justify the red badge. And on the other hand, cooperate in a very successful way with some Chinese companies and still integrate some of the features they have or build the lenses. This is not anymore. I think it's already beyond the give me your sticker of your badge. But there's
they have a research center
exactly.
Together.
So there's a real cooperation here, and Leica is able to profit from that, but also appeal to the next generation of users. Yeah, they're not obsolete in any way. I think we've seen to some extent Zeiss doing it also with some other companies. I think it was with Sony and maybe other Chinese mobile phone manufacturers, but I'm not so sure that they're working so much. I mean, it's not to the extent that we see it with other companies like Leica is doing. But obviously, it's really opening a lot of opportunities. And we know from some of our friends in the industry, especially companies that are making rigs for phones, that this is the next thing that they're looking at. All of them, all the leading accessory manufacturers are developing accessories for mostly iPhone, basically. And when we get it, either to test or just to play with, we always go back to, it's almost defeating the purpose. It's taking the iPhone and it's trying to build something which it was not intended to.
Yeah.
And then you end up with the conclusion that you just want to have something very minimalistic and very usable.
Yeah.
Like to really identify what you need and what is missing. So some of it is a bit of overkill, but
I've for this, the review that I'm working on, the iPhone 17, I've been working with, and also the lab test that we are working on still. I've been working with the Tilta Chronos ecosystem, and I used the first generation on the iPhone 15 Pro, and I've seen what they have changed for the, now 2 years later for the 17 Pro. You can see that I have realized that this needs to be, it's still heavy, and it's still a metal enclosure, but it gives more access points with less additional stuff. They're trying to reduce the bulk and also have now a case, like Tilta has a case which is actually almost like a normal phone case, but it gives you the ability to add an ND filter on top. So they realize exactly what you're saying. Like, you don't want to add bulk to a phone, because as soon as you start doing that, you very quickly are on the same. It's defeating the purpose, and you're exactly in the mirrorless territory. So, but I think everybody's kind of preparing for the day when one of those smartphone makers releases a phone that really delivers quality that will be indistinguishable from some mirrorless cameras, and it will happen. Like we know, even if the sensors remain small, computational video will at some point probably have a shallow depth of field that is good enough for 80% of the productions. I'm talking about the low-end productions. So this day will come, and I think those accessory manufacturers are just preparing themselves for that. Yeah.
Good.
But interesting things are happening. And again, this is another, like you said, I mean, it's incredible how far we've come also with this, not just the PIXBOOM and the slow motion cameras, but also just the capability of these phones. And we see this trend in general, I mean, with influencer content. And a lot of brands over the last few years hired influencers to kind of, in different industries, to promote their brand and content. And now it seems like there is almost, because of AI and because of these over perfect now generated videos that really very much are trying to look like high-end Hollywood, I can already see the beginning of a trend where they want stuff to look like it's shot on a phone. You know what I mean? Because that kind of gives more authenticity. That's also part of the discussion with Oren Sofa on this whole AI thing. Is we can already see this shift on and it's unfortunately video makers and filmmakers that are suffering from this, because a lot of the brands are simply now deciding to shoot stuff in-house with staff that are using their phones, but not necessarily as a budget thing, more as an authenticity kind of play. So you shoot it with a phone, it looks like it's shot on a phone because people will perceive this as real content as opposed to something that looks generated almost, even though it was shot with a professional camera. It's a troubling trend, but I can see this happening. And I think that's one of the trends we will see in 2026.
And if it's too perfect, you can always move to the Fujifilm camera.
That's another example, right? That's why people love these things. It's because
authentic.
it looks low end. And especially Gen Z likes that, right? They like something that doesn't look as perfect as shot on a phone in terms of sharpness and so on. It just looks vintage and a bit more rough. Yeah, but
yeah, good.
You can find the link to the poll in the show notes, and also to the Xiaomi 17 Ultra article, which details, of course, the Leica Corporation and the features for that.
But if you go to the poll, please leave a comment, not only vote, because it's interesting to hear your thoughts about this whole debate, if anything will move you from an iPhone to an Android device. And there's some very interesting comments there already with the differences between Android devices and what's actually happening in that space. So which we might not all be too familiar with, but there's a lot of stuff happening also when it comes to video codecs. Cool. Let's move on to a bit of accessory news for the GFX ETERNA 55 from Fujifilm, which we are reviewing
you are reviewing right now. So Mid49, the accessory maker from California that actually was founded by the founders of Wooden Camera, they released it's called Direct Connect XLR module, and it gives the whole setup a lower profile and 2-channel balanced audio with that Tascam accessory that you need in order to get XLR inputs on that camera, right?
That's right. The camera itself doesn't have any XLR inputs, only mini jack, headphone, and 3.5 for audio input. And the thing is that you have a supplied handle with the GFX ETERNA 55, and you have a hot shot at the front of it. And this device from Tascam, which, by the way, they make it for different cameras. It's just, of course, different connectivity. This specific device from Tascam is connecting to the camera hot shot at the front, and then you don't need any cables. Basically, you just connect your microphone or whatever you want to the XLR itself, and then the rest of the connectivity is going through the digital interface. The thing is that it's there not for beauty, it's there to work with. And in the minute you connect XLR devices, of course, you also have the weight of the cables and everything. And the way it is right now, it's absolutely not so comfortable.
Did you use this accessory for the review?
No, I didn't feel that I need it. And I'm happy that I didn't use it. I actually wanted to test the camera more in a documentary environment and see how it works for me. That's why I also used wireless device with a 3.5 input, which, by the way, then I found out the mini plugs, the 3.5, are at the back of the camera, and the hot shot is at the front of the camera. So if you want to put a receiver, like a wireless receiver, you have to have a long enough cable to feed the audio. And that's a bit of it's very challenging because some of the companies are really giving you very short cables. So it would have been nice if there was another, even cold shot at the back of this handle that Fujifilm is supplying. So we could put the receivers at the back. But
more business for Mid49, ARRI, and the others to make cages.
Exactly. But at the end of the day, I like what Mid49 did here. So literally you're moving that Tascam device to the back of the camera and connecting it at the back of the handle. That gives more stability, and it looks better when it at the back of the camera. There's a whole video that Ryan did, one of the founders and owners of Mid49, and he explained exactly how it's connected now, and I think it's a very valuable accessory. My only issue here that you pay, I think, like what, 600? 800?
Yeah.
That's a bit, I think this is steep. It's a bit maybe too much.
You have to put things in relation. The camera is 16,500, no?
Well, that's another story which I'm discussing and talking about in my review. But you're right. Maybe, but is it legit to charge more for accessories or even more? I don't know. I don't know how much work went into this. Yeah. Of course, it's a professional thing, but it's a steep price for such an accessory.
Yeah, cool. Let's move on and talk about a GoPro laptop. So GoPro and ASUS launched a co-branded creator laptop, and we put up for question whether this is a real workflow integration for GoPro or more of a marketing exercise. Now, we know that GoPro has been, a little bit under pressure from Insta360 and DJI specifically, some other manufacturers as well with action cameras, because in terms of quality, for the longest time GoPro just provided the highest quality action cameras in terms of video quality, and then of course DJI decided to enter this market, and also Insta360, both of which Chinese manufacturers that have been pushing very hard on high quality devices basically, and have managed, in our tests at least, we saw that the DJI Action 6, Osmo Action 6 actually already surpassed the GoPro in terms of video quality, where they they played catch up for a couple of years, but then now we are at the point where there's not really an advantage anymore to use a normal GoPro action camera. So
what it's all about, because
the hero, but now, so they have been, they've been discontinuing a couple things, and they have also upgraded recently their cameras, but it's been more of a, there's not been so many upgrades in terms of sensor technology at all. It's mostly software enhancements. We have a Max 2 version of their 360 camera now, which was surprising actually, that they've updated this after a couple of years finally, also to still be able to be competing with Insta360 and DJI, who just entered that space also with the Osmo 360 recently. But so they're probably looking for other ways of business. So this is really a laptop that is manufactured by ASUS, a very experienced manufacturer of course, of laptops and screens. We reviewed a lot of their screens already. This is, to be fair, a rebranded ASUS laptop that is also going to be in the market. So the ASUS version of this laptop will be called ProArt PX13. And this one actually, this GoPro edition, of course, first of all, it kind of gets a bit of a GoPro look. It is, it's quite cool. I mean, as a Mac user, you're not familiar with these devices, but in the Windows era, they are quite common to have these combinations of laptops and tablets. So you can literally use this as a tablet as well. And
it's more rigid. It's more because GoPro is supposed to be like outdoor. That's more. What's the main selling point here?
Well, the laptop introduces this Story Cube app, which ASUS describes as the first Windows application to unify GoPro cloud access with 360-degree video management. So they're trying to put a lot of software on there that is really optimized to work with GoPro footage, essentially. Of course, there's nothing hardware-wise that is really different from the ASUS version of this. I mean, there is a bag that looks like, I think it's included. It's a bag that makes it look like the bag from a GoPro. It's more of a branding exercise, I guess. And it has a dedicated, the only hardware thing I think that it has is a dedicated GoPro hotkey that launches the GoPro player for instant playback and basic editing of standard and 360-degree content, You also get an included 12-month subscription to GoPro Premium Plus, which has different functions, so that's included, but it still doesn't make up for the price difference because like we're talking about, there is no price for the new ASUS version of this laptop yet, but the predecessor was around $1,900, and this one I think is $2,400. So it's $500 price difference between the normal ASUS version. I mean, to be fair, it's a very powerful laptop. It has a lot of hardware wise. It will work remarkably well for editing because it's very powerful. But yes, it's probably a marketing exercise.
No, I mean, I'm a bit surprised with ASUS. We know some of the people; they're all nice and capable. I'm trying to understand because obviously the company is marketing this as a strategic move, but we know that GoPro is struggling. It's kind of a falling company that didn't really innovate so much in the last years. They lost 37%. Last year, like 2025, over the previous year. So, what is ASUS trying to do? Save them, or what?
Well, I guess for ASUS it's easy, right? They basically repackage their same laptop, add a hotkey, and put a GoPro sticker on it, and can sell the same laptop for a little bit more money, and add an extra bag, and GoPro will get some royalties for the branding.
That's it. Must be something else that you're missing. I don't know.
It's the subscription. You have the subscription built in, and it's a little bit. Yeah, of course. I mean, it's not an actual. I mean, why would you? You're never going to use a laptop just for one purpose, right? You're never going to use this laptop to only edit GoPro footage.
Yeah. No, I just thought maybe it's a bit tougher, so it kind of compete the Panasonic Toughbook or something, but for mimic outdoor usage.
I think they're just trying to find ways to make some money on top of their normal products, because like we said, they have been struggling, to be honest.
Well, at least they can show the shareholders that they are doing something with a reputable company.
Exactly. And yeah, but at least, I mean, in terms of hardware, it's a good device, like it's powerful, but it's not gonna, there's not gonna be any significant difference to the normal version, which is probably gonna cost a couple $100 less.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe the difference will be less than that because only the predecessor is $1,900. So let's see. It looks like a GoPro, but yeah, it's not, with the packaging, but that's it's a co-branded thing. Good. Yeah, that one thing I wanted to mention that was already reported about in December, but we haven't talked about it because of the interview podcast over the last couple of weeks. So ARRI actually released a couple of interesting statements on their social media account where they said that they're committing, I mean, a lot of people were worried that they might spin off their lighting business, especially. And this was not a press release or anything. I think they only released this on social media. And they wrote that, ARRI prepares for the future. For more than 100 years, ARRI has created tools to empower filmmakers. As we come to the close of a very difficult year for many businesses and creatives in the film and entertainment industries, ARRI would like to provide an outlook for the coming year and a strong commitment to the future of our brand. ARRI lighting remains at our core. I think that's also the core message here. They're saying that lighting remains a central pillar of our business and we're dedicated to continuing this legacy. We have a full roadmap of lighting products, which is, great news, that we're excited to launch in 2026 and beyond, featuring new technologies for motion picture, live entertainment, and the content creators. We're committed to maintaining the standards you expect from ARRI lighting while meeting the needs of future productions. And,
it's always funny, because on one hand, you want to see a message like this from the company. On the other, when you start to communicate this type of messages with the community, you ask yourself what's going on. I mean, we've seen this with Olympus in the old days saying we're not going to sell our mirrorless business, and then a few months later, suddenly there was a Hohem instead of Olympus. Let's hope, really, for the sake of the dear people at ARRI, that's really going to be the case, and of course we wish them well.
Yeah, that's like you said. I mean, it's always it's one thing to hear rumors and so on, but it's another thing to hear statements like these, which also I think they're as much targeted as the general public and the customers of the company as much as their own employees, right?
Of course.
So, yeah, but at least, I mean, there seems to be a confirmation that they are not trying to spin off the lighting business, and there is a confirmation that they are going to release new lighting stuff. There was no mention of new. They say they remain committed to high-end cinema and broadcast cameras. But I don't think we can expect new cameras anytime soon from them. It's very hard to say from this. But anyway, it's nice to hear that, they...
All I can say is that ARRI is fully aware of the industry trends.
Of course. Yeah. And let's see. Okay, let's move on to the last piece of gear news this week, which is the Hohem iSteady MT3 gimbal series that was released, and also the company's first portable SSD. Now, this is kind of the mirrorless version of the Hohem iSteady V3 Ultra smartphone gimbal that I reviewed before. Now, the interesting thing, of course, it carries over that AI tracking device, which is basically a little camera that is mounted next to your normal camera, and it gives you connection to a little touch screen. So you can also have a live feed on this little removable remote touch screen. And then you can select whether you want to track an animal or an object or a person. And it does a really good job, because the cool thing is that kind of makes the whole tracking mechanism independent of your camera. So, you don't need to configure, you don't need to connect the camera with the gimbal in order to track, because the tracking module is separate. There is, of course, still ways to connect the camera to the gimbal in order to have camera control on the gimbal for most of the different camera models. But the nice thing is just to have this remote also means that you can hand this to an assistant or a colleague and have them actually use the joystick to either control the gimbal while you're doing the main movement, almost like a drone operator with a the pilot versus the operator. You can do this with this device too. And now this is simply available. All this functionality is available in the mirrorless version of this gimbal. I like that they try to keep a very small footprint. I mean, of course, this is competing head-to-head with the DJI RS4. And
but there are two versions here, no? One is the Pro and the other one is like base.
Yeah, there's different versions of this.
And the payload is mostly the different. It's like 2.5 in the Pro version, if I'm not mistaken,
something
and
like
1.3.
that. I still have to. I mean, I'm gonna review these, and I'm gonna look very closely at the differences between the two versions. It's very easy to change from horizontal to vertical, which is also nice because of this L bracket that they provide. So let's see how it goes. I think in general it's just amazing how far we've come with gimbals. I think we've seen a little bit of a slowdown in new releases over the last couple of years because simply, the ones that are in the market are already very capable. But having something like this with the remote monitor, which you of course can also mount like this at the back, is very, very useful. And
I actually really want to try also because I never really worked with gimbals in the past. I really believe in kind of handheld stuff. Maybe sometimes it's just too smooth, and when you work on documentary style, you want to have
what you need.
Exactly. When I like a bit of a movement when you work on documentary, and that's why most of the cameras with the internal IBIS is sufficient. But this looks also small enough and lightweight in order really to travel with. Interesting.
Yeah, honestly, there are no big differences between them, right? I think they are, or it's not going to be much smaller in terms of like what it is than predecessors, because you're always limited by what you need in order of the battery capacity and all that kind of stuff. But yes, I mean it is relatively small. But they also released a new SSD. I mean, it's actually their first portable SSD. The interesting thing, this is, I think their first move into storage products.
I think the sustainable data rate is quite good.
Yeah, it's 2,000 megabytes per second for read and 1,800 for write via USB 3.2. And it's kind of made to be mounted on a smartphone. So it's really made to be used as, for example, recording ProRes RAW from an iPhone, which you need to do on an external SSD in order to get, or any kind of external storage in order to get the quality. And I think it also doubles as a hub. So you have 3 USB-C ports that allow the unit to serve as a hub for storage expansion. You can also add, of course, a microphone receiver to your smartphone through that, so you're not kind of giving up. And even you have 65-watt pass-through charging, so nice. You can keep it charged while you are using this as an external SSD, which is quite smart. The SSD comes, I think, in 1 terabyte and 2 terabyte capacities for $219 and $339. And the gimbal is remarkably low priced. I mean, the base model is of the iSteady MT3 is only $329 and the Pro version $449. So that's quite also amazing, like compared to the DJI RS4, which is considerably more expensive. All right, 2 more educational things we just want to mention before we sign off. So we released an article talking about the 3 new videos from Tito Ferradans. I still don't know how to say his name since the beginning of this show. And Tito is the expert for anamorphic shooting. We have 2 of his courses on MZ. There's also a very extensive YouTube channel that he has where he keeps feeding the community a lot of experiments around anamorphic shooting, whether it's with real anamorphics or fake anamorphics, using all kinds of different tools. And now he just released 3 new videos, right?
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, we've been so busy, I didn't really have the time to watch those videos. So I can only rely and say Tito is a great guy. When he's doing a video, he knows his stuff and he's really diving into it. So I can only expect that those videos too that he just published are very thoughtful, and
Yeah.
it's almost like, we are running also an educational platform, but I have to say that providing and releasing such high quality content like he does for free, it's really amazing, and that's really supporting the community.
With these videos, he's really trying to educate the audience to learn the terminology around anamorphic lenses. So, for example, in the first video, he says we should stop saying character and really describe what a lens is actually doing. So he's talking about aberration and flares and so on. And, he's really explaining what that actually means, and also in a scientific way, and how it actually happens. So very nice educational content from him. And the second one, I think, is on lens flares, how like talking about different coatings and how they affect the image, and then also cropping the image and the different image circles that you need to know about when you shoot with anamorphic lenses, because it will really affect what lenses you can use on
Very
which camera.
relevant for nowadays, actually, when we're having so many anamorphic lenses or autofocus anamorphic lenses and open gate and all of that things. Very
different frame sizes on cameras, which didn't used to be the case. Last but not least, an educational article by our dear Masha on extreme wide shots for impactful storytelling, and she provided some amazing film examples to that. She's talking about what purpose extreme wide shots serve in storytelling with movie examples from famous movies and that use this technique. So whether it's, it's all kinds of different movies that she's using, Star Wars and also Dune. So it's really, what does an extreme wide angle shot, what purpose does it serve? Because of course it's very detached. It's very far away from your characters. So what purpose does it serve in order to establish your story? That kind of already gives it away. And so it's all nicely written up here if you want to dive into that. And with that, we close this episode of CineD Focus Check, and tune in next week for the 100th episode.
Amazing.
100 weeks. We managed to not miss a single week.
It's really remarkable.
Yeah.
But again, thank you guys for supporting us, and we can see constant growth in exposure. And I think it's very important that we can still serve as an independent voice. Please write us. We can always communicate with the companies if there's anything specific that you want us to deliver. We are very much aware, concerns and from the positive to the negative. Yeah. So just keep writing us.
Yeah. Write us at podcast@cined.com. Leave a comment on the YouTube video or this article of the actual podcast. And please give us a rating on your favorite podcasting platform. If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to this podcast, any ratings will actually help us in getting more reach. And hear you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.